there's all these leagues around. If you had a driver's license, you could drive to the bigger shows.
Now, I remember, I don't know if, Tony, you remember this. We did an appearance at an independent league, and we were backyard wrestlers. Not only did I kick the living crap out of this independent wrestler that was trained, and I say that in parentheses, I got a bigger pop than he did. And it pissed, I'm not going to say the guy's name because the federation's long gone.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
There's a lot of people exactly like this.
And it pissed the promoter off to the point where he asked us not to come back because we outshined his wrestlers.
Right, because those wrestlers, like you, perfect word, generic.
Yeah.
In other words, and every independent wrestling league I've ever had any contact with, I watch the show, and my only suggestion is I've never been in the ring. I'm a lifelong fan, but I've never been in the ring. But all I can say is that as an observer, and I hate to say this, character is at least as important. See, and I want to say more important.
It is more important.
I don't want to say that because I like my favorite pro wrestlers have always done both.
Yeah.
Great character, great ring skills. But the problem with all these generic wrestlers is, number one, they don't concentrate on their character. Number two, my other criticism, but they're mediocre for a reason. Or maybe it's as a result of being mediocre. What they do is they try to imitate slavishly the WWE.
Yeah.
Yep. They don't try to get their own characters going.
No, they don't have their own characters. They don't have their own finishing moves. They don't have their own.
Sometimes it's even down to the names.
Yeah, I mean that's contemptible. But even if they manage to come up with some hacked off name, I mean I don't want to see an independent show where all the wrestlers are duplicating clotheslines,
Spears,
I hate
super kicks. Everybody does them.
I hate super kicks. I honestly do. I hate super kicks. And now I'm talking. I won't tell you how long I've been on this earth. Chuckles admits to 5 reincarnations, okay? But I've been a wrestler for a long time. A wrestling fan for a long time. There's not too many things I hate worse than the super kick. I mean, Shawn Michaels, okay. He was the first one. That was his thing. It was done once. He owned it, and he had the character to pull it off. Okay.
Now every wrestler does it, and it's a generic move.
It's a generic. This is the. Thank you, Chuck. This is the problem, Chuckles. Most of the finishing moves, most of the moves that should be finishing moves, are now. Would you agree? Are now generic moves.
Correct. Like one of my friend's finishing moves, a neck breaker, is a generic move. But if Rick Rude put that on you, you were done.
Yeah.
It was your neck was broken.
Yeah.
That's why it was called a neck breaker. Not I get up and don't sell it.
Yeah.
No, that's one thing I will criticize Ring of Honor for. I think it's the best of the leagues now, but Ring of Honor has a bad case of that. Finishing move, followed by finishing move, followed by finishing move. In other words, it's a whole series of, a lot of matches are a whole series of finishing moves.
Yeah, your finishing move shouldn't be halfway through your match.
Well, what I'm saying is that the finishing moves are not finishing moves anymore.
Correct.
They're generic moves. In other words, I've watched a couple of Ring of Honor main events where there had to be like a series of like 5 finishing moves in a row. A tombstone, followed by a super kick, you get the idea,
right.
In a row. And at the point, even the audience there was booing. In other words, at the ridiculous...
Did they start doing the boring chant?
It wasn't boring, it was stupid. In other words, part of the point of part of the thing involved in selling a wrestling match is that just like watching horror movies, the audience needs to be able to, as they call it, suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
And the great wrestlers all knew how to make us do this. Even Hulk Hogan, the stuff he did in the ring, it was not possible, but he made us believe it. And the wrestlers today don't know how to do that. And the reason because they don't know how to do that, it's like 5 finishing moves in a row. It's like, I wish they'd stop it.
Yeah.
There are some gentlemen, and I will talk about that when we're coming up next after this next song break, that have started to pay attention to this, and character development and finishing moves are not all that's part of their repertoire, and I see them carrying on to become the next big thing. Not Brock Lesnar. He's not the next big thing. He's been here already.
He wasn't the big thing when he got here. He doesn't have what it takes to be a pro wrestler.
No, he's scary as all can be, but not. It shouldn't be where he's supposed to be. Go back to MMA,
Brock
please.
Lesnar walks in the room right now. I'm going to crap my pants.
Yeah, I'm going out the window. So let's go down to a little Dio, rest his soul, here on Chuckles Crypt, a little Evil Eyes. Evil Eyes, and I have the most evil eyes that is at this table as we speak, because I am the one and the only Chuckles the Klown. And you are listening to Chuckles Crypt here on Rhode Coming up next, of course, the Haunted Cabaret, and we got some good stuff for you with that. Isn't that right, Mr. Garner?
Oh, absolutely.
Some spine-chilling, great...
Spine-chilling, tasteless horror.
Love it.
We can promise.
We love that.
So you're talking politics?
Yeah, that is horror, all right.
I don't think I'm going to be able to beat the horror of the political action going on tonight.
No, let's just not. But right now we are talking about, and yes, and Chuckles Crypt is about pop culture, if you are tuning in. And
There's
if you
nothing
are
more pop culture than pro wrestling.
And it is. And if you're not a fan of pro wrestling, take a break for a second and come back later on for the Haunted Cabaret. But if you are, you know what we're talking about out there. There are not too many leagues out there. No, let me say this correctly. There are not any leagues out there that can compete with WWE right now. You may think you have that league to do so, like New Japan or TNA or the Ring of Honor or whatever it is. You cannot compete with them.
No, you can compete in terms of talent, maybe, but you can't compete in terms of marketing clout. It just
not even with talent, because talent-wise, they scoop them up.
Yeah,
And
if
that-
you're also
and
in
here's-
Good
Japan,
point,
you're
good
in
point.
WWE in 2 weeks.
Yeah, here's a great example of that. Like Lacey just said, we just scooped up, well, not we, WWE just scooped up New Japan's top star. And he's going to be debuting in NXT, which is a WWE training ground. And it still kicks the crap out of with ratings out of Ring of Honor, TNA, or New Japan. If you were to put any of those to compete with NXT, they would fall flat on their face.
And NXT is the baby project of WWE.
And NXT, correct me if I'm wrong, this misery, their pay-per-views are better than WWF's or WWE's. They are far better. Finn Balor, their world champion.
Balor's awesome.
That guy's amazing.
Their divas are actually scary. They're not these pris little...
Our
thing.
favorite tag team over there, the Italian boys there, you know,
Oh,
Swaff.
Swaft. They're pretty funny. I
Great.
Like them.
Their tag teams are actually tag teams, not just people put together.
But what's cool is a lot of the people you grow to like on NXT, they debut into Raw and stuff.
And there
so
comes
you
the
can watch their
talent.
careers grow, and then you know there's going to be fresh new people in NXT, so you can see something fresh all the time. There's always new wrestlers.
Yeah, well, part of the problem why none of the other organizations can compete with WWE, like you said, on any level, is yes, the talent can be stolen. The problem is that nobody is sticking to their guns, so to speak, as far as trying to formulate a unique product.
Why would you?
In other words,
Why? Because by the time you formulate this unique product, all the mind brains inside of WWE have already come up with it.
what you do, though, the way I would attack this, and again, I'm not in the business, so this is just a fan's opinion. But generally speaking, in business, now WWE, as we all know, has gone the Walt Disney family-friendly
Yes.
route as far as their product. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Very
Right.
much so.
So it seems to me that there is a place in pro wrestling for a league like the old ECW. Now, I'm not saying to do the same thing,
But the true hardcore.
there's a place for another league that makes a product unacceptable to the WWE
Yeah.
and sticks with it.
Yeah, that's the problem is sticking with it because TNA
Exactly
started doing that and then they
Yes.
fell back on their face. And,
they had Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff in the mix.
yeah, and they stopped, and the damage was already done when they took that ring and turned it into a four-sided ring.
Their
They
whole
lost
little
so
kitsch
many
was
people
the
because
six-sided ring.
we looked forward to seeing something different out of the six-sided ring, seeing that cage come down with the weapons attached to it,
Yeah.
and how this guy was going to get up and brutalize the next guy with the weapons. But somewhere along the line, they lost that chemical and that formula.
That they lost that formula.
And I'll tell you-
when two people, if I'm not mistaken, showed up at TNA like a virus into the body.
As much as
Like-
that virus
like
was
like
there,
like herpes germs in a sexual episode.
but they did it. They
Hulk
didn't.
Hogan, they did it, but they
Yes.
fell victim to the siren song of more money equals Hulk Hogan and for some reason Eric Bischoff. In other words, having those two characters in there is like I say, it's like catching the flu. You know what I'm saying? It's like a healthy body that catches the flu. It's not. It's going to lead to pneumonia, and you're not going to survive unless you get rid of it really quick. And that's what happens. What happened, past tense with TNA, is that the first thing they did is probably Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff combined. They can't count to 6.
No,
So
it's too
that's why they
awkward.
had to put in the four-sided ring.
Well, half the wrestlers they were getting in there wouldn't know how to use that because they started recruiting the good old boys, bringing them down.
My point and that's that was the death of
It
TNA's
was.
big push to compete.
And half of the people they recruited needed a rascal power chair to get down to the ring.
Put it this
Exactly.
way: when you bring in Bubba Ray Dudley, and I was always a fan of the Dudley Boys and ECW and WWF, but when you bring in Bubba Ray Dudley and decide he's going to be your champion, and you're going to rest the organization on his shoulders and on Hulk Hogan's shoulders,
You're going to make him a bad guy.
yeah, a feud between Bubba Ray Dudley and Hulk Hogan.
Like,
One guy that his forte, Bubba Ray's forte is tag teams.
Right.
Some people, and that's what these wrestling organizations don't understand these days too much either, is that some wrestlers, their thing is tag team wrestling.
Some
They are
characters
just
aren't
because
strong
you're
enough on their own.
just because you're good enough to compete or perform as a great tag team doesn't mean you can carry the load